What's the craziest crime you or somebody in your family has committed? My dad told me he once snuck into a tire warehouse. He cut the alarm and came in through a window on the roof and stole a bunch of tires. A distant cousin got her terminally ill father to give her power of attorney and then stole all of his money so she wouldn't have to split it with her brother. Edit. Don't worry. She did go to jail as her rush to clean him out involved a lot of fraud and forgery. My friend got blackout drunk and stole a bulldozer that had the keys left in it. He turned it on and obviously didn't know how to drive it, so he just ended up making the scoopy part go up and down for a bit before the cops came. They actually let him go too. A siscopy part. My grandfather's cousin stabbed a waiter to death because he wouldn't let him use the employees only restroom in his restaurant. My dad's side of the family grew up as New Hampshire hicks. My grandfather was stabbed in 2 different bar fights and burned down an entire country club because he thought they were too stuck up. He was never caught and went on to earn a bronze and silver star in the Korean War. But unfortunately lost his leg too. Since this is getting some attention, I thought I might add that my grandfather got his shit together, started a successful small business and later joined that country club as an old man. He never really felt welcome there, my dad said, though. They weren't really his kind of people. Cousin got busted robbing a bank. Got sentenced to jail. Proceeded to break out of jail with his cellmate and went on the run. Fast forward a few months and he's living in a hotel room with his cellmate. Cellmate orders a pizza to the room. Bad idea. Delivery guy recognized them and reported them to the police. They get arrested again, and shortly after my cousin killed himself in prison. My cousin had a wife and a kid and got into a nasty coke habit. We don't bring him up anymore. My granddad accidentally shot his brother in the ass. He meant to shoot something out of his hand, but missed. Drunk. Genius. Hillbilly shitty. Thankfully my dad married well, and I turned out alright. My dad brought in a banana tree to the US from his home village in Kerala. He literally walked through customs with a tree in a pot in his arms. The customs lady asked him what he was thinking and he just replied that the banana tree was from his mother's garden. The customs lady must have thought my dad was crazy, but she just let him walk right through. We still have that tree and its offspring. My husband's dad killed the guy who his then girlfriend was cheating on him with. He was supposed to serve a life term but got out because of a clerical error. He did manual labor on a local park and apparently the guys who helped were supposed to get a reduced sentence. However, he was not supposed to. I think my husband talked about it once. Also, my husband's half-brother, same murderous dad, killed his business partner. He would have gotten away with it, however. He moved the body when he found out construction was going to start in that spot. And what were they going to build there? A prison. He's currently serving a life sentence. My husband has never met his half-brother. He also has 2 half-sisters from the same dad who are law-abiding citizens. 2 half-sisters that didn't get caught. My uncle went to prison for chaining a cop to the back of his bike and driving down the highway. An uncle robbed a bank, or was an accessory to the robbers. IDK. His brilliant escape when the police showed up was to go to the roof and jump off. He didn't do time. Just had to go to the hospital for a broken leg. I'll have to ask my mom when I get a chance. She knows the story better than I do. Aim for the bushes. I worked at a movie theater when Back to the Future was originally released. We used to take the entire movie ticket instead of tearing them and resell them to the next group coming in. The old theater was massive. Sat 600 people. We probably made about $15k between 2 of us in month or so. Adjusted for inflation, it's about $37k. We were the richest high school kids in our town. This was a couple of generations back, early 20th century, but there was this guy who was constantly getting drunk and harassing my great aunt. So, one of her male friends dressed up in an Easter bunny outfit, put a bat in its giant fake carrot and beat the dude with it. He got away with it, but I'm sure it helped that half the community was waiting for the day the guy's liver finally gave out. Edit. Okay. One small clarification. The bat in question was a baseball bat. Not a flying mammal, though that's certainly an interesting visual, and I can't say I'm sorry for my small role in creating that image. My cousin in Youngstown, who used to rob people selling goods on Facebook, got caught after him and accomplice murdered a man over a PS3. Good times. My aunt came home one evening to find that her son had broken in, killed her dog and was eating it, and then tried to kill her. He was a hardcore addict and it fried his brain badly. Edit. Whoa. Came home from shopping and this blew up. Okay. So to answer some questions, give context. I don't know what he was on at the time, but he was addicted to a myriad of drugs and meth was his drug of choice. It happened a few years ago, and I don't know this side of the family that well. He was arrested, and I believe has recently been released. And for those of you asking about the state of the dog, exclamation point. It was raw. Think zombie. Less than sign. And thanks to everyone for the awards. I missed 10 seconds ago when I didn't know this happened. My dad, when he was much younger and infinitely more stupid, regularly used to drink drive with his friends. It was the early 70s. And no one really cared. To hear him speak about it now, he can't believe how stupid he was. One night, he and his friend were out drinking. They heard there was a party going on at a pub across town and decided to head over. On the way they go past a large club with a queue of people waiting to go in. My dad decides to show off a bit and pull a skid. He miscalculated, hit a curb and flipped the car, sliding down the road on his roof. The car stops. They get out and leg it. To the cheers of the people in the queue. They get the bus back home and immediately call the police to report the car is stolen. The police knew what had happened, but couldn't prove anything. A great-grandparent, years ago during an occupation, was being approached repeatedly for sex by a soldier guard assigned to her village. One day she lured him into her home, stabbed him repeatedly and threw him down a well. The entire family knew and no one drank from that well ever again. Edit. Dates. Okay. Called my mom to get more info. This is like a great versus just a great grandparent. Also confirmed that her and her parents and grandparents never used to well, so that's about like 200 plus years of no well use. Location is Eastern Europe. On a personal note, I've never got this many upvotes. I bragged to my wife and she says like most achievements of men, all the heavy lifting in this story was done by a woman. Not really a crime, as in not necessarily illegal. But my grandfather had 2 separate families in 2 different cities. Named both of his firstborn sons after himself. And they both named sons after themselves too, including me. So I share my name with my father and grandfather, as well as a half uncle and at least one cousin. My uncle stole one of those oil candles from our table at a Hard Rock cafe once. When we got outside he pulled it from his jacket with it still lit. My dad's older brother came home from the war in Vietnam to find that his wife had been cheating on him with his best friend. He locked them both in the friend's house and burned it down with them in it. He held the firefighters off with a rifle until he was sure they couldn't be saved. Then he shot himself. This was before I was born, but I've seen some newspaper clippings about it. Edit. Several people asked how he kept them in the house alone. I asked my mother about it and she said that he locked them together in a small bedroom closet and barricaded the door from the outside so they couldn't get out. This was 1970 in New Orleans. I'm not gonna give more info as it'd be easy to tie back to me, same last name, or his daughter who was a little under 2 years old at the time. And I don't want that. Edit number 2. Apparently, it's Vietnam and not Vietnam. Thanks for the corrections. I sold old school RuneScape money for real life money a few times. One time my uncle put ranch dressing on a dry-aged NY strip steak that cost $70. He's dead now. But years ago my relative got in a bar fight and lost, so he went to his vehicle to get his rifle. Fortunately the police arrested him on the way into the bar, so his charges were a lot less. Still did jail time. Great uncle was a mobster in NY in the 40s 50s. He committed numerous crimes. Murder, theft, etc. He disappeared one day though. So no worry about the FBI coming to bug me about it. Edit. Gonna add this. And a comment I added further down. I am not proud of this fact of my family. I think it's a disgusting part of my family history. But too many Italian Americans with nowhere to turn during that time and plenty of discrimination against the Wopis ended up with a lot of them being involved in some capacity or another with that kinda shit. I feel bad. But since I never knew the guy, it's not a thing I connect with personally. Vertical bar. Semicolon. Edit 2. Correction to typo of a slur used against Italians. My cousin was affiliated with a 1% MC. He was not a patched member but would do jobs for them. He got arrested for beating someone with a baseball bat who allegedly had gambling debt with the MC. He did 3 years and was on parole for a few years after that. He's still a shady character and I wouldn't be surprised if he was still doing dumb shit. Edit. MC equals motorcycle club. Not sure if it should be considered a crime. But one of my great aunts was in an abusive marriage with a war vet who took to beating her and forcing her to play Russian roulette when he drank. One night she managed to rig the gun so when he took his turn he blew his brains out. She wasn't charged. My great uncle stole a train station. Like an actual train station. Edit. Bonus crime. He broke into a local police station to steal his own paper criminal record. Didn't destroy or steal any of the others. Just his own. My grandpa wouldn't obey the train warnings. He would try and beat the train rather than wait. First time he got hit in his new convertible on the way to prom with my grandma. Had barely started on the payments and car was totaled. Luckily they were both okay. Second time was a little less reckless but still dumb. He was driving a semi and it broke down on the tracks. He kept trying to get the tractor trailer to start. Rather than lose his rig and load. Semi got hit by the train. Total loss and FK'd up his back. My uncle sold Tim Allen the cocaine that got him sent to prison in the late 70s. Got stoned. Drunk and rode an electric scooter with a friend. Only to end up in front of a huge fence with barbed wire I decided to climb. Huge mistake, it was a military base. I ran out of there at speed light when I realized. Fortunately I escaped. My dad's cousin erased all family member names from a property deed except for his father's. The paperwork had been water damaged so there was no easy way to tell what should have been there. Family law says that he also paid off some local politicians' office workers to make the new deed stand. I once snuck a camera in a movie theater and made a camera recording of a movie that I uploaded to the internet. I stepped on my dog's foot once accidentally and boy do I regret it. I browsed Reddit through the Chrome browser. On mobile. My grandfather was often drunk, but when he wasn't drunk he would pretend to be drunk so that the Soviet Communist Party members responsible for interrogating all those who might be opposed to communism thought and said, "Hey, he's a drunk. We'll question him last." This gave him time to gather resources so he could escape with my dad. So, although public inebriation probably almost certainly wasn't a crime in most Eastern European countries at the time, late 40s, he would have been gulag bound if he'd been caught in this charade. I was offered a glass of 25 years aged Old Par and I mixed it with some Pepsi. The look of horror on my buddies' faces is still engraved in my memory more than 20 years later. Uncle Jeff ate a few guys in Milwaukee. I've eaten 5 guys before. I downloaded the movie Pootie Tang from the Bay. Damn. The FBI is on fire today. When he was a teenager, my dad robbed a mother's cookies truck. Cookies for months. Great uncle was forced to flee Italy after protesting Mussolini or something like that. My mother-in-law and her ROTC friends once stole an actual tank from a military base way back in the 60s 70s. They were there on a field trip and they were finally stopped when they ran out of gas while driving it down the highway. According to my grandmother-in-law, she saw the whole thing going down on the news before she got the call and realized her kid was one of those joyriders. As a 10-year-old, I violated Section 508 of the Communications Act of 1934. Received underhanded assistance in a purportedly bona fide contest of intellectual knowledge or intellectual skill. Basically, got manipulated into being on a rigged kids game show, which was cancelled days before it was supposed to air on Fox because someone spilled the beans. I didn't realize until years later what was actually going on. Nice try. FBI. Not today. CIA. Won't catch me. KGB. Is that your best? Us? Or is that you? Russian GRU? Doesn't matter. Yahoo brained noggins. Curse my luck. It's Baskin Robbins. As 6-year-old child, I set something on fire. Almost caused an entire house block to go up in flames. A member of my family once took part in an armed insurrection against the United States. He even led an army that was part of that insurrection. The state of Virginia just removed his statue from the US Capitol building. One of my great uncles was highly involved in sanction busting for the apartheid state of Rhodesia. He worked for the Netherlands Bank of Rhodesia and was forced to stay and work through threats to his family by the minority government. Luckily, he managed to convince the government that his kids simply must have a British public school education, and that his wife would escort them to London for the start of term. Whilst they were abroad, they were taken into protective custody by the British government, and he managed to slip over one of the land borders to safety. He was flown back to the UK for debriefing and was kept in the country for a while. He took up farming in the deepest and quietest bit of countryside he could find. Escaped the cops by outmaneuvering them through residential neighborhoods. I was evading an exhibition of speed ticket. I couldn't go back to that area in my car for years. Once when I was a 16-year-old genius, my friends and I were speeding down the HWY. Just passed into city limits where the speed drops from 55 to 25. Still going 70 when I pass a cop. I see him slam on his brakes, so I go faster and pull into the first parking lot I see, kill the engine. And we duck down under the seats. Not 20 seconds later, 2 cops go tearing us right past us up the road. We took a back road and got back to my house no problem. Human smuggling. My great-great-great-grandfather's aunts ran a station on the Underground Railroad, which was morally right, but legally wrong. When I was a dumb 6th grader, my best friend was a hardcore vegetarian. A McDonald's was going up practically in the backyard of her fam's condo. We snuck out and spray painted things like meat equals death on it, keeping in mind that I was a happy omnivore lol. But then we pulled up these rocks the size of our heads and threw them at 2 huge 7 to 8 feet windows. Think of the windows on the front of Mercedes that let you see the entire inside. Took a couple attempts to get them to shatter. We snuck out a lot. There was one time around age 15 when we applied heavy makeup, wore our slag clothes, and got into a frat party. She lived walking distance to campus and smoked pot for the first time. Not an actual crime, but when I was like 13 I was watching NSFW pictures on my parents' computer. Long story short, my dad got blamed on and paid with week on couch. My uncle started a fight in his regular pub in his 20s after they tried to charge him an extra 10p for his usual lager and lime, 10p for the lime. He kicked the shit out of the bartender, broke a police officer's nose, and it took 8 of them to bring him down in the end, I believe. He still boasts to this day about how he came out of prison with more criminal knowledge than he went in with, and how he used to make metal hooks for the other prisoners which they'd use to scale the fences to try and escape. He thinks it makes him sound cool and edgy, but he's such a dickhead. Can't stand him. Not family, but a good friend, so pretty close to family. Stole the mall golf cart that was used to help seniors and disabled people. Had security cashing him down and tried running it through the huge double glass doors into the parking lot. He got away. TTY thing to do now. But 25 years ago it was pretty funny. Me personally? Driving while under the influence of shrooms, weed and alcohol. Didn't get caught, but it was the single most terrifying experience of my life. And I've been mugged 3 times before. Someone in my family apparently murdered his wife and son, but it's a fairly distant relative. My mother's cousin or something. My uncle has stolen allegedly over 1,000 cars and done other various nefarious things to fund his heroin habit. Got 8 years in prison. Got clean during that but was diagnosed with cancer after 7 years of prison and died like 2 months later.